Hi, I'm Chef Hannalee Pervan from One House Bakery, and today we're going to be making a squash and pumpkin panzanella salad. For panzanella, you want to first start with really good bread. We're a bakery and we mill our own flour here. We use organic flour. We do a combination of whole wheat flour and organic white flour. This is our country loaf right here, so we figured it'd be a good chance to highlight the bread that we make at the bakery. The first thing that you want to do is start with your vinaigrette, your dressing for the panzanella. You want to make a little bit more than you think you're actually going to need because the bread is dried out. So you're going to cut it into chunks. I like to take the crust off because it gets a little dark as you start to dry it out. You want to take it till it's pretty crunchy, pretty dried out, and you want to make a little bit more dressing than you think you're going to need because it's actually going to start to soak up into the bread. Panzanella is really good if you make it the day before. You can let it sit in the fridge for a few days. It just starts to get even better. The outside starts to get really creamy. The inside, if you've toasted it right, has a really nice crunch to it still. So that's what I did yesterday. I dried the bread out. You just coat it in a bit of olive oil, gray salt, pepper, in the oven around 300 degrees. Let it get nice and hard. For the actual dressing, what we did was we took the pears. So all of our produce that we're using today is from Beloved Farms. We're highlighting pumpkin, butternut squash, jujubes, and pears, and also walnuts. So that all comes from Beloved. So the first thing that we did is we took our pears, we cut them up into little chunks and roasted them in the oven with the jujubes until they got really nice and caramelized. So this is what it turns into. You take all that and then you blend it up in the blender until it's nice and smooth. So that actually starts our base flavors with the pears and the sweetness from the jujubes. So you want to add that to a bowl. You're going to add raw garlic. For the acid for the dressing, I decided to use Marsala wine and sherry wine vinegar. I thought that would be a nice combination for the fall flavors. And then we're going to use finely diced red onions. Put those in. Organic olive oil. All of the sugar, all of the flour, all of the oils that we use at the bakery are all organic. So I think it makes a big difference in terms of quality and taste. French gray sea salt, black pepper. So you just want to combine that together. And this becomes the dressing for the salad. I'm going to do this first just so it has a chance to really soak into the bread. It makes a big difference. So pour that all over your dried out bread. And then just give it a nice toss. And it seems like it might be a little bit too much dressing at first, but it's really just going to soak in. At the bakery, we started making panzanella salad because it was virtually impossible to figure out how much bread people wanted to eat. So one day we would have no bread left over and then we'd up our numbers, and then the next day we'd have 30 loaves left over. So then I had to figure out something to do with all that extra bread. So we ended up making panzanella salad. So this has actually become one of the staples at the bakery. So when that's mixed in now, we're gonna add the butternut squash. So what I did was I took the butternut squash, I peeled it and then sliced it really thinly. So when you do that and you bake it, it actually, some of them turn into like crispy little chips. So it ends up adding like a nice kind of caramelized, like slightly burnt-ish flavor to it, which is actually really nice with the sweetness of the pears. So you add that. I'm gonna save just a few for garnish. Roasted pumpkin. So you add the roasted pumpkin. What I did was pumpkins are very hard to break down. So I figured that out. So you need a very sharp knife. You're gonna cut the ends, the top and the bottom off, cut it into half. And I ended up saving the seeds from the pumpkin. Kind of as an homage to when I was a kid. My mom we used to carve pumpkins together, and she'd always save me the seeds, and she'd coat them in butter and salt, and like for 2 weeks, like I just wanted to eat pumpkin seeds. Like that's all I ate for the next 2 weeks. So I did that. I roasted the pumpkin seeds, and I actually used the walnuts from Be Love Farm. I roasted them separately because they're going to cook at different rates. And then I mixed in Aleppo pepper, French gray sea salt, brown pepper, or black pepper, and some olive oil again. So just let that kind of coat together. All right. All right. So for the salad, so like I said before, you can do this a day before. It's actually really nice to let it sit. And if you find that the bread is soaked up all the liquid, just add a bit more oil, a bit more vinegar, whatever you need. Some people like it a bit crispier. Some people like a bit more soft texture to it. So like that. And then I love radicchio. It's a lettuce, so we've shredded it really fine. It adds just a really nice bitterness to the salad, which might sound unusual, but when you're dealing with butternut squash and pears and all these really sweet fall items, having a little bit of bitterness is gonna make the salad really nice. I'm gonna top the salad with more walnuts and pumpkin seeds. There. This here is a gorgonzola cheese. It's a blue cheese, but it's really mild. It's not going to overpower the ingredients. You just want just a really little bit of it. It's not like a strong Stilton or a really blue. Like the gorgonzola is just really creamy and delicious. We're going to top it with more pears from Be Love Farm. They're so sweet. And then just a tiny bit more Aleppo. And that is our pumpkin squash panzanella salad at One House Bakery.